fact that we have a portion of the population for which we have a moral obligation to provide support to is important to us, but we want to know how that fits into the scheme of things. And that's what the One Stop does and is supposed to do. That is a place where businesses or individuals can go and get all of the services necessary, or at least be pointed in the direction where those services are available. And you've got a very good one here, you've got a good operator, and you have a very good workforce investment board that is monitoring the performance of that. And your leadership down here is good. They are very important to creating the vision that you need for workforce development in this area. Now, 51% of a board is supposed to be populated by the business community. My understanding is, and the last time I was down here at the board meeting, it looked like you had well over that 51%. But for the business representatives in the audience, fundamentally important that you be engaged. I was glad to see there's representatives from Rolls-Royce down here. We've been meeting with Rolls-Royce on a number of subjects, registered apprentice programs being one of those, and they understand the importance of being engaged in not just their local city, but the total region, to make sure that over the decades we have the feeders and the pipelines in place. So all of these things going together, working well with one another, is what that workforce development system is all about. But it's not a discipline by itself. It has to work in concert with the educational systems and the economic development to make sure that when we're dealing with either incumbent businesses or we're dealing with businesses we want to bring into the region, we're answering their question as where are they going to get the skilled workforce necessary to make them competitive in this global marketplace. And just a quick comment about this global marketplace. And you get it. You're here. I believe you're the true believers. But what we need to do is get the message out. The global marketplace is alive and well. You know that. The furniture industry, cabinetry industry, textile industry, it's gone. And those jobs are not coming back. And it's not that they went to China. It's they went to places even cheaper labor than China. Now, we're going to get tired of hearing about China, but I'm afraid China is one of those powers, those gravities that's out there. It's going to be with us the rest of our lifetimes. More importantly, it's going to be a big factor, play a big factor in our children and grandchildren's life. You just think about it, 1.3 billion people out there. We're maybe 310 million people right now. We're a quarter their size. You take the top 25% of anything, be it most productive, most knowledgeable, most energetic, that's our total population. That's why it's so important to us to use every bit of human resource we have here and make sure that they at least know the opportunities that are out there. If they don't want to take advantage of them, well, you can't force a horse to drink. You can take them to the water, but you can't force them to drink. But we got to make sure that we engage and use our population, because China's real. Every time I talk to a business person that's come back from China, they come back with a sense of, not fear, but uneasiness as to how competitive they are becoming. And what's even more important is China is recognizing, and the workers in China, they're recognizing, yeah, they may only be 1/4 as productive as the American worker, but they also recognize they're only earning 1/10 of the wage of an American worker. And there's starting to be pressure in China to raise the rate of pay. And you see there's a lot of unrest in the workforce in China. Now, is that good news to the United States? No, because what that means is, in some instances, the cheaper jobs that they've been doing, or the jobs they've been doing with cheaper labor, just goes to Vietnam, or goes to Malaysia, or it goes to some lower cost. It does not come back to the United States. And what it does is it drives China further up the advanced technology spectrum, because they will start bringing in more productive pieces of equipment to put down some of the labor risks. Now, that won't happen nearly as fast as it has in the United States. They have a different challenge with 1.3 billion people, keeping them employed, particularly as they come from agricultural into the urban settings. Nonetheless, they will be doing things to make themselves even more competitive in advanced technology. That's the challenge we have. And talking about advanced technology, you recognize that everything we touch, our products, our processes, in the home, in the workplace, in the educational institutions, is driven by technology. And that rapidly acceleration of implementing that technology is not going to slow down. As a matter of fact, David was up here talking about modeling and simulation. He was talking about it in terms of products and companies. I suggest to you the greatest growth in modeling and simulation is going to be in the educational community itself. If you think about it, a welder, right now to learn how to weld, you go into a booth and you strike an arc. Well, let's see, how do you prepare the student for that? Well, first you warn them about catching their clothing on fire. Then you warn them about molten metal going down the back of their neck and burning them. Now that's a real good learning environment, right? You just scared the heck out of the kid. The last thing they're thinking about is how to get their hand-eye coordination, their gap, their angles, their speed. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about not catching themselves on fire. If you think about it, a helmet with a lens, a glove, and a cord, that's Nintendo 101. And the kids will respond to that. That's modeling and simulation. Someone that does the painting of a house or a painting of a car, same type of thing. Has anybody tried to paint their car and not get the ripples in the side? Okay. Well, you can learn how to do that with modeling and simulation. And there are companies out there developing that technology. That technology over the next 10 years will find its place into resource centers such as this, such as the one the Rolls-Royce is looking to put in place up in Petersburg. That's where you're going to see modeling and simulation have its greatest impact. Talk to a nurse. Does a nurse like to learn how to take blood on a human being? No. That's very dangerous to the human being plus to the nurse. They don't like to do that. Modeling and simulation so that they can learn how to put tubes in, take blood samples. That's where you're going to see technology. That's just an example in education. That's going to be everywhere. Think about teaching math in our elementary schools. If the software can be such that it senses if the person is understanding it, fine. If it senses angst or blood pressure goes up, and by the way, NASA engineers have these types of workstations where they sense the human body as a machine. Because if you think about a $300 million satellite going up, you only get one shot at that. And that's been designed over 10 years probably. So every time an engineer sits in front of a keyboard, they want to know, is that engineer operating or that designer at the highest level of productivity? If they've got a fever, if they have angst, they're thinking about something else, they don't want them touching that design. Get that same kind of sensing device for a young person learning math. If the way they're teaching the math isn't engaging the student, change it from fractions to pies, things of that nature. You're going to see that type of stuff integrated into education in places like this, and Paul will probably be one of the leaders to be able to put that in, knowing his past history, and the same thing with community college. But that advanced technology, we have to have our people to the level that they are constantly trainable, and that's a component of workforce development. In the recommendations that we're going to be making to the governor in the commission, you will see a number of items that it's aimed at strengthening the education and tying it together so that we look at education and training as a lifelong, continuous process, starting in early childhood. And I would say, just to mention baby boomers and the demographics and the shift on that, because we all know it, I think there's some gray hairs in this room. We are going to retire. It may be 70 instead of 62 like we wanted, but nonetheless we are going to retire. But in terms of that, 73, 78 million baby boomers, whichever number you choose to use, we are going to retire, and we are going to continue to be a center of gravity, distorting everything around us as we go through that process. What we want to make sure is the baby boomers are engaged in the educational system, either as our career and technical and our STEM teachers, if they got the right DNA, and we're smart enough to be able to get them credentialed quick enough so that they don't lose attention, or they're going to be users. The last thing we need is a group of 73, 78 million people out there worrying about hip replacements or going into Alzheimer's because they haven't used their brain. We need to keep them engaged in the educational process. That's a portion of the population and the challenge of workforce development that we also have to think. Keep them productive, keep them engaged. So this whole lifelong process is going to be one of our pushes. The leadership to make that happen, how to coordinate the organizations, and how to get the regions, such as yourself, engaged in making sure it's happening at the local level. Because quite frankly, this is not something the state can come in and say, region or community, this is how you have to do it. This is something just like you've done here. You come together and you make these things happen. And then we can support that effort. And as many of this room knows, I'll be at any meeting you want me at to help lend the support we can, particularly in those communities such as yours that have taken that initiative and doing things to improve your quality of life. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's like old home week. I know many of the people in this room, and it's good to be back. Thank you.